All right, everybody, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive. Today we're tackling something that's like the bedrock of communication. Vocabulary.
Yeah, vocabulary is huge.
And we're going deep with 30 words straight out of the Oxford 5000. It's all about like leveling up your English game.
Absolutely. And I think what's really cool about this deep dive is we're not just going to define these words. We're going to actually use them, right, in sentences.
Exactly. Like imagine you've got this toolbox, right? But instead of hammers and screwdrivers, it's packed with words.
Oh, yeah. I like that. A word toolbox.
The more words you've got in there, the more you can build, the more you can express. So first word up, exaggerate. Okay, confession time. I have a teensy problem with exaggerating sometimes, making stories a little more dramatic.
Oh, come on. Who doesn't love a good story?
Exactly. But exaggerate, like officially, means to make something seem bigger, better, or worse than it really is.
Right. It's about adding that little extra oomph. Like when you say, I'm so hungry I could eat a horse.
Yeah. Or like, I've got a million things to do today.
And, exaggeration can be really effective in everyday conversation. Like, that movie was so scary I almost jumped out of my skin.
See, that's good. That's how you use exaggerate. Okay, next word, exceed. Now, this one's all about going above and beyond, right?
Exactly. To exceed means to go beyond a limit or a goal.
Yeah, so like when I first started learning English, I was like, all right, 5 new words every single day. That's my goal. And guess what? I totally blew past it within like the first week.
Now, that's impressive. That shows some serious dedication. But, we see exceed used in lots of different contexts, like the company's profits exceeded expectations this quarter. That's always a good thing.
For sure. Or like the athlete exceeded her personal best time in the marathon.
Exactly. It's about pushing those boundaries. But remember, we can exceed in a negative way, too.
Oh, right. Like exceeding the speed limit. Not so good.
Definitely not.
Which brings us to excellence. And I feel like exceed is about going further, but excellence is about the quality of what you do.
You got it. It's about reaching that high standard, that top-notch level.
So like a musician who's like super dedicated to their craft, they practice all the time, and then they achieve musical excellence.
Absolutely. Or a chef who creates those like mind-blowing culinary masterpieces.
Yeah, or even a student who like just puts in the work and totally nails their studies. That's academic excellence.
Right. It's about striving for the best, whatever you're doing.
Okay, switching gears a bit, let's talk about exception. Now, this one's a little bit tricky because it can have a few different meanings.
Yeah, it can be a bit of a chameleon.
Right. Like it could be something that's different from the norm.
Yeah.
Like birds can fly, but penguins are an exception.
Exactly. Or it can mean making an allowance for something, even if it goes against a rule. Like, I don't usually work weekends, but I'll make an exception this time.
Yeah, and sometimes it's about like objecting to something. Like in a legal case, the lawyer filed an exception to the rule saying it shouldn't apply in this specific situation.
Right. Good example. So context is key with this word.
Now, when something is exceptional, that's not just different. It's like crazy good. Right.
It's like exception, but amped up. It implies something extraordinary in a positive way.
So you could say like that young athlete has exceptional talent, like they're going to be a star.
Exactly. Or this restaurant offers exceptional service. We felt so well taken care of.
Okay, I'm getting hungry now.
Oh, me too.
Okay, let's move on to excess. This one always makes me think of those all-you-can-eat buffets. Sometimes you just go a little overboard.
Oh, yeah. Excess is all about having more than what's necessary or desirable.
Right, so it could be like an excess of caffeine can make you feel super jittery.
Totally. Or the city had an excess of rainfall this year, and there was like flooding everywhere.
Okay, this is a good one. An excess of enthusiasm.
Ooh, I like that one. It can be good or bad, right?
It really depends. Okay, now if something is excessive, it's too much in a way that's not good, right? It's like over the top.
Yeah, like it crosses a line. For example, the noise from the party next door was excessive. We couldn't sleep at all.
Ugh. Like that. Or like, excessive spending can lead to serious money problems.
Yeah.
Not good.
Nope. Or maybe the violence in that movie was excessive and unnecessary.
Okay, let's get into the idea of leaving things out. So, exclude.
Yeah, to exclude means to intentionally leave someone or something out of a group or activity.
This takes me back to, like, childhood. Remember when you'd be playing and someone would say, you're excluded from the game?
Oh, man, that was the worst feeling.
I know. So brutal. But yeah, exclude can also be used in more, like, formal situations. The study excluded participants under 18, something like that.
Exactly. Or maybe this discount excludes sale items.
Now, exclusion it's like the noun form of exclude, right?
Yeah, it's the act of excluding or the state of being excluded.
Like, the exclusion of women from certain professions was sadly common in the past.
Right, and we still see social exclusion happening today, where certain groups are marginalized and left out.
And we can't forget about racial exclusion. It's still a big problem.
For sure, exclusion is a word with some really important social implications.
Now, this word's interesting. Exclusive. It can be a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, it's all about context. Exclusive can mean something is restricted to a select group, making it feel special or high-end.
So, like, this ticket gets you exclusive access to the backstage area. Ooh, VIP.
Exactly. Or this is an exclusive interview with the award-winning author.
Then it can also be, like, snobby, right? Like, that's a very exclusive club. Only the super rich can get in.
Right, good point. And then we have exclusively, which means only or solely.
So this offer is exclusively for new customers. Something like that.
Yep, spot on. Or the artist creates exclusively in black and white.
Okay, now let's talk about a word with some real weight to it. Execute.
Yeah, this one's serious. Execute means to put a plan or order into action. It often implies doing it efficiently and decisively.
So it could be something like, the team executed the launch of the new product perfectly.
Yes, great example. Or the chef executed the recipe flawlessly.
Now, this one's a little heavier, but historically, execute has also been used in the context of, capital punishment.
Right, a much more somber meaning.
Okay, moving on. Let's talk about exert. This word is all about putting in the effort.
Exactly. It means to use your strength, power, or influence to make something happen.
Like, the weightlifter exerted all his strength to lift the barbell.
Perfect example. Or maybe in a more diplomatic situation, the ambassador exerted pressure on the government to release the prisoners.
And sometimes we exert ourselves in more everyday situations too. Like, I had to exert a lot of self-control not to eat that entire pizza by myself.
We've all been there.
All right, next up, exhibit. Now, when I hear this word, I instantly think about museums.
Me too. It's that classic image, right? Rows and rows of fascinating objects.
Exhibit means to publicly display something, often in a museum or gallery setting.
Exactly. So you could say the museum is exhibiting a collection of dinosaur fossils.
Or the photographer's work will be exhibited at the gallery downtown.
And we can also use exhibit to talk about behavior, like the patient was exhibiting signs of stress and anxiety.
Right, that makes sense. Okay, this next word is a heavy one. Exile.
Yeah, exile is the condition of being forced to live away from your home country, often for political reasons.
It's a powerful word with, like, a lot of historical significance. Napoleon being exiled to Elba, that's a classic example.
Right, or in more recent times, the journalist was exiled after criticizing the government.
And sometimes exile is used more metaphorically, like after the fight, he felt exile from his group of friends.
Yeah, like he was emotionally cut off.
Okay, let's talk about a word we see pretty much everywhere. Exit.
Exit is simple but crucial. It means to go out of a place, or the way to leave.
Like the classic, in case of emergency, use the nearest exit.
Or maybe the band made a grand exit after their encore performance.
Yeah, and we use exit metaphorically too, like the CEO announced her exit from the company after years of leadership.
Okay, ready for a word that's a little more exciting? How about exotic?
Ooh, yes. Exotic gives me those travel vibes, like faraway places, vibrant cultures.
Exactly. It describes something unusual, foreign, or excitingly different from the norm.
So, like, she brought back exotic spices from her trip to India.
Or the botanical garden has a collection of exotic plants from all over the world.
Ooh, I love that. Okay, let's shift focus a bit and talk about expansion. This is all about growth, right?
Absolutely. Expansion means becoming bigger, spreading out, extending.
So, like, the company is planning an expansion into European markets.
Or the city saw a rapid expansion of its population in the 20th century.
And expansion can be personal, too, like the expansion of your knowledge or your skills.
Right. It's about broadening your horizons.
Okay, time to get a little practical. How about expenditure?
Ooh, yeah. Expenditure is all about spending money.
Right, so it's like the government's annual expenditure on healthcare is massive.
Or we need to track our monthly expenditures to create a budget.
Ugh, budgets. But yeah, expenditure doesn't have to be boring. Like, my recent expenditure on that new pair of shoes might have been a bit impulsive, but they were so cute.
Haha, I feel you. Sometimes you just gotta treat yourself.
Okay, let's talk about a word that's all about trying new things. Experimental.
I love this word. Experimental means something is new, untested, or outside the box.
Like the scientists are conducting an experimental study on a new treatment.
Or the artist is using an experimental technique in her latest work.
And you know, experimental can be fun too. Like, my friend's an experimental cook. You never know what she's going to whip up next.
Sounds adventurous.
Now, expertise is something we all strive for in our own ways.
Absolutely. Expertise means having a high level of knowledge or skill in a particular area.
So it's like, the surgeon is renowned for her expertise in robotic surgery.
Or the mechanic's expertise in vintage cars is unmatched.
And expertise isn't limited to, like, professional fields. You could say, my grandfather has an expertise in woodworking. He makes the most beautiful furniture.
Exactly. It's about mastering something you're passionate about.
Okay, let's talk about a word that reminds us that nothing lasts forever. Expire.
Right. Expire can have a few different meanings, but it always has to do with something coming to an end.
So, like, my driver's license is set to expire next month. Better renew it.
Or the coupon expires at midnight tonight. Gotta hurry.
And in a more serious context, the patient's life expired peacefully.
Okay, let's move on to a word that leaves no room for doubt. Explicit.
Yeah, explicit means something is stated clearly and in detail, so there's no confusion.
Exactly. So you might have explicit instructions for assembling a piece of furniture.
Or the contract included an explicit clause outlining the payment terms.
And of course, we often hear about explicit language, which can be offensive to some.
Now, explicitly is similar, but it emphasizes intention, right? Like you're making your point very clear.
You got it. It's about being deliberate and leaving no room for misinterpretation.
Like, I explicitly told him not to touch my stuff.
Or the law explicitly prohibits smoking in public buildings.
And sometimes it's used for emphasis, like, I explicitly asked for no pickles, and they still put pickles on my burger.
The worst. Okay, ready for a word that can be tricky? How about exploit?
Ooh, yeah. This one can be good or bad depending on how it's used.
Right. Exploit can mean to use something effectively to your advantage.
So, the company exploited new technology to increase productivity.
Exactly. But it can also mean to take unfair advantage of someone or something, often for personal gain.
Like, the workers were exploited by their employers, forced to work long hours for very little pay.
Right, and sadly that happens all too often. We also see exploit used in a more neutral way, like the chess player exploited her opponent's weakness to win the game.
Okay, so exploitation is the noun form of exploit.
Right.
Right. And it usually carries that negative connotation.
Exactly. Exploitation refers to the act of taking unfair advantage of someone or something for personal gain.
So child exploitation is a serious global issue.
Right. And environmental exploitation is another major problem we're facing.
Okay, ready for a word that packs a punch? How about explosive?
Ooh. Yeah, this one brings the drama.
Explosive can describe something that can cause an explosion or something that's sudden, intense, or volatile.
Like, the fireworks finale was an explosive display of color.
Or the debate became explosive when the candidates started arguing.
Yeah, and explosive can be metaphorical, too. Like, the band's new album was an explosive hit.
Okay, next up is exposure, which has a couple of different meanings, right?
Yeah, exposure can mean being vulnerable or unprotected. Like, exposure to the elements can lead to hypothermia.
Or leaving your valuables unattended in public puts them at risk of theft and exposure.
But it can also mean experiencing or encountering something new.
Right, like traveling to different countries provides exposure to new cultures and perspectives.
Exactly. Or the young musician is hoping to gain more exposure for his music by performing at local clubs.
Okay, last word for our deep dive today. Extension.
Extension is a versatile word. It refers to making something longer or adding to it.
So it could be physical, like we're building an extension onto our house to create more space.
Or I got an extension on the deadline for my essay. Phew.
And extension can also be more abstract, like compassion is an extension of love.
I like that.
Well, we did it. We just explored 30 incredible words that'll help you express yourself more clearly and understand English at a deeper level.
It's amazing how much power there is in just one word, right?
Totally. And as you continue learning English, think about this word, exploit. Where do you see examples of exploitation happening in the world today? What can be done to combat it? Think about it. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.
See you then.